Nation, Hangout number 461. As of right now, it looks like I'm going to be doing a solo episode tonight. If somebody wants to join, look at that. Just as I was about to say, I'd like to welcome the 0 people listening. And no sooner do I say that when 2 people jump right in and immediately let their presence be known. Welcome to the 2 people that have decided to join me so far. I might actually make double digits this time. Again, the race is me versus me. Oh, well, no, I'm down to 1 now. Okay. Well, the race is me versus me. And yeah, the channel and I continue to grow at a fairly healthy and profitable rate here. I'm going to just hold on a second here. I have one more thing to send to somebody, and then we can get started here. This is, like I say, this is Red Pill Nation number 461. Looks like I'm going to be doing a solo episode tonight, so yeah, hang on, everybody. Let's just get into it. Site news. I might, if the mood so strikes me, because I got a few things I got to take care of. At least one thing tomorrow morning, anyway. Yes, that's me sipping on a coffee right now, trying to stay awake for the entire show here because I bore myself. If it's possible, I will be picking up a Naroki live stream number 10 probably tomorrow afternoon, depending on how circumstances are going. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Because it's gonna be. I am seriously behind on the memes. Like, I am seriously behind on the memes at this point. So yeah, it should be a very interesting show. Hopefully you'll decide to join me. If not, well, you know what? I don't have a problem talking to myself anymore. I've gotten comfortable doing this show by myself. So yeah, welcome to the one person who is actually listening right now. For those of you who don't know, I am in order of number of subs, Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, MGTOW TV, Brighteon, and YouTube, which is growing at an actually fairly healthy pace right now, which is a bit of a surprise. The topics for tonight, and there is a rather I will say there's an eclectic mix, but a lot of it ties into the Charlie Kirk stuff just, like everything just appears to have accelerated. But yeah, to get into the basic points here. Topic number 1, Jimmy Kimmel reinstated, but Sinclair and Nexstar refuse to air show. Topic number 2, YouTube decides to allow allows counts shut down during COVID to be reinstated. Gonna throw in a caveat there. They changed their minds. Topic number 3, Donald Trump delivers scathing speech to UN. And the event was that people tried to sabotage that. I don't think that would be a particularly smart move to do. Then we get the Hollywood section. Apple TV delays the release of the Savant. And yet another failure of the Harry Potter TV series. Voldemort as a woman. Yeah, man, you just cannot make that stuff up. Topic number 5. This one might actually go on for a while. Keir Starmer has at a globalist event, no less, openly announces the rollout of digital ID. And topic number 6, it's on. Crackdown on Antifa starts. George Soros appears to back down almost immediately. That one's rather interesting. It's too bad that nobody else has decided to join me tonight. I would be interested in hearing some topics and opinions from some other people other than myself, as much as I'd like to hear my own voice sometimes. So without any further ado, I am Naroki 5, but I am going to actually start out with, of course, some personal commentary. This personal commentary, though, is coming from a person that I very rarely, I've got some real serious reservations about this person, but his comments here kind of make a lot of sense, and I will get into the reasons why they make a lot of sense to me after you hear it. But this is Nick Fuentes. He's making a very solid point here, and one that I think a lot of us need to seriously consider. But anyway, Nick Fuentes making a very solid point. Here we go.
And let me be clear about this, because I understand not a lot of people are loving this message right now. This is not the message that a lot of people want to hear right now. Here's another message you can try on for size. These people that are now selling t-shirts with Charlie Kirk and a bullet wound in his neck, they cannot be negotiated with. You cannot debate with them. You cannot persuade them to vote Republican. You cannot appeal to them. You will never convince them that you're a good person, that you just want the best for everybody. You will never get them to stop hating you. People like to say, well, can the left finally admit that they have their own problem? They'll never admit that. They'll never admit that. These craven losers, that person that when Charlie Kirk got shot in the neck, instinctually got up and turned and celebrated, they have to be defeated. We can't change their minds. We can't invite them to change our minds. We can't negotiate with them. We can't invite them for a political compromise. If your gut reaction to seeing someone take a bullet in the neck and their face explode, and their young children run up to them because they were afraid of the noise, if your reaction was to grin and celebrate, you must be defeated. You must be destroyed.
What can I say, folks? He's got a point. I get that some of you might not agree because it's Nick Fuentes and Nick Fuentes, and he's rather triggering. Perhaps not as triggering as Andrew Tate, whom, by the way, I also have a video of later on tonight. Just giving you a heads up on that. But I'm just going to give a little opinion on this from the manosphere perspective, because this is I originally started this. And at some point if time permits, I'm actually going to probably start doing all that. That's the reason why I started the Naroki 5 live stream, because I wanted to dedicate some time on this channel to actually getting back to my roots and getting back to the manosphere and discussing manosphere topics, not just topics that are in the news. Although I have not seen any feminists actually openly celebrating this, and I have not seen any feminists going hip hip hooray, this faction that Nick Fuentes is talking about, this faction that cannot be negotiated with, that cannot be reasoned with, that you can't have any type of a respectable kind of a conversation with. That group also includes feminists. And the reason why I say that is that, one of the things that I'm noticing, which is the other reason why I started the Naroki 5 live stream, is because, you're starting to see male feminists and manginas and SJWs and social justice warriors, or whatever the fuck you want to call them, you're starting to see this group come in and make a make a point. Hold on a second here. But I mean, hold on a second here. I'm messaging Rearson. Okay, yeah, sorry, I had to message Rearson. Rearson is in a place where he doesn't have a lot of privacy right now. The whole thing is, there has been a very, very long. In fact, there's a guy, Victor Zen, at one point addressed this issue, like, why don't you try talking to them? And I still get people every once in a while when I talk about the manosphere and I talk about manosphere issues. It's like, why don't you talk to them? It's like, you know what? There were people before I even got heavily involved in the manosphere that did try to reason with them. All right. Now, in the next, maybe possibly as early as tomorrow, I have a stack of memes in articles for live stream number 10 that's almost as long as my arm. I got like 200 plus photos, right? Like, and I'm going to be possibly doing commentary, sometimes short, sometimes long, on all of them. And the big issue here for me is the fact that, for guys in the manosphere that are listening to this show, this is a very hard to swallow pill, but unfortunately it's one you're going to have to like swallow and smile while you're doing it. You're going to have to seriously consider the possibility that what Nick Fuentes is talking about with this crowd that was celebrating Charlie Kirk's death, that same group also probably would also apply to feminists, right? Like, I mean, again, I'm dealing with a few people at a couple of groups on Facebook right now, and yeah, they're coming hard, and they're having to come hard now because they know that the state, Great Britain might have their back, but the U.S. government doesn't have their back. And they keep self-defeating, which is making it even harder for them to get the initiative back. And you're going to start seeing some desperation. Now, if you're in the manosphere, be it a MGTOW, an MRA, or a PUA, or just generalist red pill guy, or you're in Sterling, or you're in the Promise Keepers, you have to seriously stop and consider whether you want to continue to waste your time explaining yourself to feminists. And unfortunately, that involves a huge bulk, and not just the ones that are actually out and out feminists, but like the ones that are feminist adjacent, right? Like, this is the MGTOW in me coming out right now. Like, I don't really feel like having to. I don't feel like explaining myself to feminists anymore. All right, if they come in, they start doing stupid shit, and trust me, there is no shortage of feminists coming in and trolling certain manosphere sites, and of course you also get like feminist adjacent guys or white knights or whatever who come in and throw around the term incel or whatever, right? Like, those individuals do not have to be negotiated with. Those individuals do not have to be explained to or rationed with or coming to an understanding, right? These men have made it, these women and these men have made up their minds, right? If it's a man that comes into a manosphere space and starts throwing around insults like, yeah, you know what? That's the functioning equivalent of somebody walking into a male space, like say in a gym or something like that, and going around insulting everybody in this gym or in this bar or whatever, right? The gloves are off, right? You go at them hard. They can fuck off with the triggered comments because I'm seriously beyond giving a shit, right? They want to come into a male space and start throwing around incels and throwing around comments like incel or can't get laid. By the way, the whole can't get laid thing is just kind of pathetic because it's like, in reality, like, what business is it of any of these guys, male or female, that, like, that why are they so concerned about whether I'm getting laid or whether somebody else is getting laid? You know what? It doesn't. It actually, honestly, doesn't. They don't deserve an explanation. They don't require an explanation. You have to live your life, not the life that some asshole who follows his dick around like a dog defines what your term is, right? You become a solid, self-sufficient, emotionally self-sufficient male when you join the manosphere, right? In particular, when you become MGTOW, right? Like, these guys don't deserve or require or are entitled to any explanation. What they are entitled to is having their attitude thrown back in their faces. And the reason why I do it is simple. The reason why I don't try to explain myself to these individuals anymore is because these individuals that come into this space, first of all, one, I'm fine. I can handle the insults and the abuse. I'm perfectly okay with handling the abuse, right? I also don't believe in pulling up the ladder behind me. And I don't believe in, like, just leaving another man to flounder and struggle and maybe get the wrong advice from the wrong man or get insulted for having to come into a male space to get the answers that they require. And these individuals are getting in the way of that, right? So my logic and my rationale when I deal with these people is that I make sure that when assholes like this come into a male space, be it physically or online, that not only are these individuals having to deal with the consequences for doing so, but I make sure that they get hit. I make sure they get punched. I insult them. I demean them. I get angry with them. I do everything I disrespect them because they are not worthy of respect. And of course, I get the usual, oh, you must be fucking triggered. It's like, yeah, it's, you know what? You're putting other men's lives in danger with your bullshit. Fuck off. You know what? And it's like, yeah, I will do what is necessary in this space to make sure that not only is your bullshit being called, that, when you come into this space, you're getting the metaphorical bloody nose and teeth knocked out, and that you're walking out the door knowing that you've been in a fight. Right? Some of them are too stupid to understand they've been knocked out, but that's not my problem. Right? you have to stop and seriously consider the possibility that these individuals cannot be negotiated with. Most of them, when they come into these manosphere sites, are there for the sole and explicit purpose of trolling, right? If this is something that was coming up in real life, would you allow this person to stay on your property? Would you allow this person to stay in the space knowing that they could potentially harm somebody or get in the way of somebody getting the help that they need? Or worse yet, being shamed or being forced to admit, because there's a lot of men out there struggling right now, right? Like, these individuals are getting in the way of other men trying to realize what they need to do with their lives. Now, I personally think that it's worth my time to go in and remove them. Now, maybe you don't, but I do. Right? And that's it for me discussing this particular issue tonight. I am going to start out with topic number 1 here, just as soon as the Teams comes up again here. Let me just take a look at this. Okay, for God's sakes, what is the... Okay. All right, so yeah. I'm going to start out with the Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel was suspended for 2 days. Now, there was a huge wah component about this particular individual that the FCC stepped in and forced Kimmel to get that they forced Jimmy Kimmel to that ABC forced Jimmy Kimmel to shut down, and of course that is not the case. And just as soon as I finish marking down the time on this, come on, hurry up. All right, come on, hurry up. All right, so yeah, just as soon as the event took place here, I will very briefly here show you, where is it? There it is, right there. Okay, there's the ratings. All right, there's the ratings right there. Clearly he is not doing particularly well, as you can clearly see by this. So it's not, he had been warned not to go there with Trump again, right? Not because Trump was being a meanie or Trump was doing this or Trump was doing that. He was specifically warned about this because it's he just keeps openly taking a side. So yeah, without any further ado, allow me to bring up the Jimmy Kimmel return and response video. I'll wait till the video is done before I will give a reaction to it.
Have to stand up to it. I've been hearing a lot about what I need to say and do tonight, and the truth is, I don't think what I have to say is going to make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions about changing anyone's mind, but I do want to make something clear because it's important to me as a human, and that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man. I don't think there's anything funny about it. I posted a message on Instagram on the day he was killed, sending love to his family and asking for compassion, and I meant it, and I still do. Nor was it my intention to blame any specific group for the actions of what it was obviously a deeply disturbed individual. That was really the opposite of the point I was trying to make, but I understand that to some that felt either ill-timed or unclear, or maybe both. And for those who think I did point a finger, I get why you're upset. If the situation was reversed, there's a good chance I'd have felt the same way. I have many friends and family members on the other side who I love and remain close to, even though we don't agree on politics at all. I don't think the murderer who shot Charlie Kirk represents anyone. This was a sick person who believed violence was a solution, and it isn't. Ever. And also, selfishly, I am a person gets a lot of threats. I get many ugly and scary threats against my life, my wife, my kids, my coworkers because of what I choose to say. And I know those threats don't come from the kind of people on the right who I know and love. So that's what I wanted to say on that subject. But I don't want to make this about me because, and I know this is what people say when they make things about them, but I really don't. This show is not important. What is important is that we get to live in a country that allows us to have a show like this.
All right. He didn't apologize. That's the first thing I'm going to say about this right off the bat. He did not apologize. He has said a lot of leftist or the typical Hollywood-style liberal rhetoric has come out about him in the process of loading up that video. I found another one where he was being very clearly biased against Trump. And don't get me wrong, man. Like, while I have generally agreed with most of the things that Trump has done, don't mistake me as being like MAGA or Team Trump. Like, I am kind of viewing Trump more along the lines of to quote Sam Tripoli, the formal changing of crime families is kind of more along the lines of what I view this as, and was Jimmy Kimmel being earnest? Well, I mean, first of all, Jimmy Kimmel there has been rumors about it. Well, you get the combination of ego and potentially a problem drinker to boot on top of everything else that has been going on with him, right? Like, was he legitimately getting choked up when he said what he said? Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell with somebody in the Hollywood community whether it's legit or whether it's or whether that's just crocodile tears. Call me naive. While I'm kind of meh on it, and I might get a little bit of flack for this, but I am willing to give Kimmel the benefit of the doubt on this one. Right? Now, am I going to completely give him the benefit of the doubt? No, I'm not gonna write him a blank check. In fact, I am most definitely not writing him a blank check. He does not deserve a blank check. But at the same time, I think what probably has to be done, at least from my perspective when I deal with Jimmy Kimmel, is, don't watch what he says, watch what he does. That's probably the best response that I can think of for what is going on with him at the moment. That's probably the best thing to deal with him. Watch what he says, watch what he does, not what he says. Right? And also, gotta remember, man, Hollywood is on the way out. And again, I will very briefly post up the ratings for Jimmy Kimmel. Like, he's barely 20% of the audience that he had a decade ago. Like, he has really, really declined in popularity, as have all of the quote-unquote late-night funny men, except possibly for Gutfeld. In fact, I think Gutfeld gets more views than the other three put together. That's just speculation on my part, though. Got to point that out. The FCC, at least, J.D. Vance is on the record that the FCC did not play a part in Kimmel being suspended. There's a lot of people in Hollywood and a lot of people, again, on the left that were trying to say that Trump had something to do with it. Yeah, I'm calling bullshit on that. I don't think that was the case. I definitely don't think that was the case at all. And, one of the things that you're going to have to, it's like, yeah, no, it wasn't the smoking gun. It wasn't the Trump administration calling up ABC News and saying, yeah, no, this guy's got to go. Right. I don't think that's what was going on here. What I think was going on here was the fact that Kimmel had, the ratings have been going down for a while. Hollywood itself is losing legitimacy and popularity for a number of reasons. And ultimately, I think also what is going on here is that, they were waiting for him to make that mistake. And, don't forget as well the rumors floating around about Jimmy Kimmel's problem drinking and the way he treats his staff. That also has been floating on. So I think it was a combination of things. Okay, he only got suspended for a couple of days. For the folks on the left that are listening to this, it's not an own, right? Jimmy Kimmel stuck his foot in his mouth. They took him off air for a couple of days, and he came back on. It's like bringing him back on is not the fucking flex you think it is, because first of all, like, he's not back the way he was before. Nexstar and Sinclair both decided that they were not going to air his show. So he's back, but he's not back. He lost another quarter of his audience. And again, right, he's only down to 20. Like I said, this graph, he is down to 20% of his audience. 20% of his audience he's down to, right? And he lost another quarter of that. So he's only got 15% of the audience that he used to have, right? So yeah, bringing him back is not the flex that some people thought it was going to be. And again, right, when it comes to Jimmy Kimmel, you're going to have to watch what he says, not what he does. I have very limited sympathy for Jimmy Kimmel. I think he's a hypocrite. I think he's, I think he's got issues that have been accumulating for a few years, and they're starting to catch up to him. And I think some of the execs at NBC, have pretty much had it with him. In all honesty, like, they've had it with him, and they used this particular moment to do something that they were probably going to do anyway. That's just my opinion. And again, right, the left is kind of flexing about this. Bottom line is that, no matter how much they flex on this, it's like, bottom line, he said he still got taken off the air. He's back, but he's only back about 3/4 of the way. And he's in his ratings. And again, I'm just going to post this up again for you to take a look at. Like, he was already on the ropes in terms of his ratings before this even started. So yeah, like, you can gloat all you want about the fact that Kimmel came back. Like, he's back, but he's not back, right? And if that's a problem for you, well, if you think that's a flex, or if you think that you're actually owning somebody by doing that, it's not. But anyway, yeah, that's something you're gonna have to deal with, because it's like, yeah, he's back, but the damage has been done, and I don't think he's ever going to get it back. That's just my opinion. And with that, I am going to move on to topic number 2. Oh, this one is very, very interesting. I am going to play a video from Redacted here, which explains it all. It runs for about 2.5 minutes, kind of explains what goes on. But yeah, it also gives me a chance to get something started. So here we go with this.
Well, a congressional bombshell went off this morning, and we're finally getting answers from YouTube as to why certain channels were banned, blocked, removed for political speech. Representative Jim Jordan, months ago, started a process of subpoenaing Google and YouTube for why they removed and deplatformed so many conservatives for covering COVID, elections, or other controversial topics. YouTube is now admitting, yes, they did that, and they're sorry about it, and it won't happen again. Wink, wink, we'll see. So this happened, some context here. Back in March of this year, Jim Jordan sort of went on a subpoena spree of social media platforms for suppression of conservative speech. Specifically, he wanted all communications between YouTube and the Biden administration or third parties who are intermediaries to the Biden administration. Did they coordinate censorship with the White House? Well, now we have the receipts, and yes, they did. This morning, Jim Jordan laid out their findings, and he started with this. Breaking, due to our oversight efforts, Google commits to offer all creators previously kicked off of YouTube due to political speech violations to return to the platform. But that's not all. And then it has a whole thread here that goes through it. Jordan also discovered that these tech platforms were pressured relentlessly by the Biden White House to censor certain political viewpoints and creators specifically. He said this. YouTube also admits the Biden administration censors pressure was unacceptable and wrong. Confirms that the Biden administration wanted Americans censored for speech that did not violate YouTube's policies. Details when YouTube began rolling it back its censorship policies on political speech after the judiciary began its investigation in the GOP Judiciary Committee. States that public debate should never come at the expense of relying on authorities. And it also promises to never use third-party fact checkers again. And it's also warning that Europe's censorship laws target American companies and threaten American speech. So he basically says whether you are an established YouTube presence with a massive following like Dan Bongino, or were just starting out to express your political views online, you have an opportunity to come back on the platform if you were censored for engaging in political speech. And yeah, he says they're going to start rolling back their censorship policies on political speech, including such topics as COVID and elections. So that's a big part of it. I mean, I know Philip looks at this constantly in the terms of service on YouTube, but you still can't talk about certain elections as being rigged or having problems.
Oops. Oops, 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 oops. How much did I miss? Like, where did I turn this off? Wow. All right, I am going to have to go. I'm going to have to circle back here. Gonna have to end this stream, and I'm gonna have to restart it where I left off, unless somebody is listening that can tell me where I left off, because I have to go all the way back here and figure out where exactly I muted out. I think I probably might have muted out at the start of the redacted video, which means I'm going to have to cover the redacted stuff all over again. Yeah, that's a bit of an embarrassment, but you know what? I've done this before. So yeah, going all the way back to the YouTube stuff now. But before we get into the YouTube stuff, I'm going to have to, again, cover a certain individual who felt it was her sacred duty to comment about Jimmy Kimmel. Emma Plath. Trump showed dislike the FCC. Brandon Carr told Disney they can do the easy way or the hard way. ABC suspends Kimmel. Even Ted Cruz can put two and two together. Facts don't care about your feelings. Emma, do you have even a lick of proof to back that up? Okay, so yeah, here I am again. I'm going to have to do this the hard way here with you. There you go. There's the ratings. See, look at that. That's 20. See, look at 2013, 2014. Now look at 23, 24. That is 20% of the total between then. Just go in there, take a look at those, the ratings don't fucking lie, Emma. How's that for facts? Those facts don't care about your feelings. 2, feel free to do a Google search on Jimmy Kimmel, drinking problem, abuse staff. Go on, feel free. Go have a look, Emma. Yeah, you're going to look at that and go, oops. Right? Go ahead. Feel free. Yeah, facts don't care about your feelings, Emma. I don't have to put 2 and 2 together. He already had been warned behind the scenes that this was going to happen. J.D. Vance is on the record as saying that this wasn't going to happen, that they were not involved. So unless you're prepared to come up with actual proof that this actually occurred, you have no fucking case at all. Like none. So yeah, fuck off with that. Facts won't care about your feelings. And yeah, damn straight Carr and Trump celebrated. A lot of people celebrated because there's this thing called left-wing cancel culture that's been going on for over a decade. Turnabout is fair play. Facts don't care about your feelings, Emma. They don't. So, yeah, what I'm going to probably have to do is I'm going to have to re-upload this video and pick up right where I left off on this. So, yeah, and I will start out with, because I did the redacted YouTube stuff, so I'm going to probably have to recover the YouTube stuff. So, again, you saw the redacted YouTube video, and then I muted out, and I forgot to cover the whole YouTube thing. So, yeah, I'm going to have to cover it again. Apologies. I'm unmuted. I'm now unmuted this time. So the whole thing with YouTube is that YouTube, as you saw, Jim Jordan has kind of made the internet his personal crusade, and he got people at YouTube to admit that they had engaged in censorship, which is probably no big surprise, right? YouTube decided that they were going to announce that people who wanted to get back in could basically go and could apply to get their accounts reinstated. And a lot of people actually did jump on board and did actually try to get their YouTube accounts back, and only to have, of course, YouTube change their minds and not see through on this. I can't really say that I'm overly surprised about this. While YouTube is not as censorious as they were back during the COVID days, and they're not as censorious and not these social ideologues that they were back in the YouTube days, back in the COVID days. They are still engaging in censorship, and they're not engaging in censorship. And yeah, that censorship included me getting my account suspended. Now, I had 868 followers. Getting it back now really won't mean anything because my combined mode on Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, MGTOW TV, Brighteon, and of course YouTube, which is only about, like, say, 9% of my total following, kind of makes getting back my YouTube kind of pointless at this point. But it is there. And my combined mode has exceeded what I had on YouTube and will probably surpass the combined mode, because I did have all of these. Hold on a second. I did have all of these channels up before. So I just basically switched over and did them. And then, of course, it would be a particular annoyance to the individual who worked really hard to get my YouTube channel shut down, to get my YouTube channel back up and running. But it's not. And I mean, he did try on the other platforms to cause me trouble. Unfortunately, it didn't really work out very well for him, little baby. But that's kind of the way it went. And I don't feel sorry for the guy. Like all he did, and this is the blessing of perhaps being in my position, is the fact that this person really went hard at me to get my channel taken down. And the net result of that is that I diversified and put myself out there on other channels where this person couldn't pull the same type of accounts suspended and all of the other bullshit that YouTube tries to pull to do it. And again, right, Alex Jones and now Milo Yiannopoulos and a few people took YouTube up on the offer. And of course, I'm thinking that, again, because YouTube is still based out of Silicon Valley and it's still the land of the liberal, I suspect there's probably a bit of an uproar inside the company itself to take it away. And keep in mind, Google is also a rather progressive group of individuals. We have covered. Google has been covered in some of the grandstanding and business tactics that were used, that were done at Google, that were leaked at an employee conference there. Clearly indicates that there was a lot of. There's definitely and again, going back to what Nick Fuentes was talking about at the very start here, right? Like, are you interested in trying to explain this stuff to the employees of YouTube? No, you're not, right? Even if I do get my YouTube channel back, I really don't know what I would do with it, because I mean, I don't need YouTube anymore, right? Like, I probably don't need Patreon anymore either, right? It would be nice to get it back. There's one individual for sure who worked really hard to make sure that I didn't get that to take me down, who might get really pissed off about it. But I mean, revenge is a very bittersweet fruit, and it's not about getting that one individual who worked so hard to get my original YouTube channel taken down to get back at him, because it's like he can't really do anything to me anymore, right? So that's where that goes. That's where that goes. Now, again, I'm going to have to, like I say, I'm going to have to probably do some editing on this. But now I will go on. So yeah, basically YouTube lied about what it was doing, or they changed their mind when they realized what they had done. Again, YouTube is dying. YouTube is either going to have to learn to play ball with what's going on, especially since Charlie Kirk's death has changed the dynamic to a great degree. But, like YouTube is going to have to play ball. They're just going to have to. And, yeah, that's basically about it. So, without any further ado, now I will get into the Donald Trump situation. Mostly because I, of course, have to edit. I'm going to have to edit this after the fact, because of course I forgot to unmute myself. So it's like there's a section of the video that I'm going to have to edit, upload, re-upload, and then take this particular, or keep this up and with all the mistakes on it and get going. So anyway, yeah, back to Donald Trump's visit. Now, again, what are the approximate odds of Trump using the escalator and having it go down, and then having the overhead monitor go down during his speech? I'm going to say pretty much slim to none. Like there's no way that was done by accident. But anyway, yeah, I got a couple of videos here of Donald Trump's UN visit. I'm going to start out with Donald Trump escalator. Again, you saw, if you were on earlier, you saw it, but I'm going to have to play it again. And again, I'm just going to be some editing done here. So here we go.
President Trump, Schumer.
Okay, and now we have the actual speech itself.
Europe. I love Europe. I love the people of Europe. And I hate to see it being devastated by energy and immigration. This double-tailed monster destroys everything in its wake, and they cannot let that happen any longer. You're doing it because you want to be nice. You want to be politically correct, and you're destroying your heritage. They must take control strongly and immediately of the unmitigated immigration disaster and the fake energy catastrophe before it's too late. The carbon footprint is a hoax made up by people with evil intentions, and they're heading down a path of total destruction. You know, the carbon footprint was a big, big thing a few years ago. I remember hearing about the carbon footprint, and then President Obama would get into Air Force One, a massive Boeing 747, and not a new one, an old one with old engines that spew everything into the atmosphere. He'd talk about the carbon footprint, we must do so. Then he'd get in and he'd fly from Washington to Hawaii to play a round of golf. And then he'd get back onto that big, beautiful plane and he'd fly back and he'd talk about, again, global warming and the carbon footprint. It's a con job. At extreme cost and expense, Europe reduced its own carbon footprint by 37%. Think of that. Congratulations, Europe. Great job. You cost yourself a lot of jobs, a lot of factories closed, but you reduced the carbon footprint by 37%. However, for all of that sacrifice and much more, it's been totally wiped out and then some by a global increase of 54%. Much of it coming from China and other countries that are thriving around China, which now produces more CO2 than all the other developed nations in the world. So all of these countries are working so hard on the carbon footprint, which is nonsense, by the way. It's nonsense. You know, it's...
Yeah, so when you're looking at this, you know, what Donald Trump is talking about there is the fact that, you know, it's, you know, they're trying really, in fact, in Europe in particular, right, they had an issue with both the German farmers and the fathers in the Low Countries, Netherlands, Belgium, and that type of thing. And they really pissed off the farmers there and in France as well. And they had Justin Trudeau would have attempted to do the same thing here, except for the fact that he was told that they really cannot, like Canada cannot afford to lose Alberta. And if they had pissed off the farmers, then, I mean, for instance, in Canada right now, I live in Alberta, right? And this province, like the percentage of people in this province that support separation is somewhere between 45 and 50%, right? Technically speaking, and I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, the only thing preventing Albertans from separating is basically a small, probably about 5 to 10% of the population that usually vote conservative, but were not necessarily sold on the bill of goods that that separation would work for them. Right? So it's, I mean, there has been an attempt to, there has been an attempt to do this. There's also been a rather, like last year, and I think we covered it on one show. I can't remember which RPN show it was, but we did cover it on one show where it was rather clear that there was a, there was a mysterious die-off of a lot of beef-producing cows. I think that was last summer. And yeah, very strange coincidence in light of all of the other green initiatives that put into place. Again, like for instance, living in Canada, like how the hell are they going to run? Like they can't, like they might be able to run on solar power in the summertime, but unless they have big, huge, powerful banks that save a lot of this electricity and are able to distribute it around the grid. And by the way, Canada does not have the electrical grid to currently provide all of the electrical needs for the entire country. That wouldn't work. And they had a brownout here also in Alberta and Saskatchewan last year because, like the increased need for electricity in northern Alberta and northern Saskatchewan caused actual brownouts here. And of course, the federal government tried to blame that on Scott Moe and Daniel Smith, when in fact they had been knowingly getting in the way of gasoline-powered electrical plants, coal-powered electrical plants, and they were deliberately throwing up obstacles to try to prevent that stuff from going on. So yeah, also what Trump is talking about here is the fact that, I mean, you can put all the restrictions you can on the West. And by the way, a lot of this, and for instance, the 15-minute cities, which I have covered on the show, because the city that I live in, Canada, for whatever reason, has decided that Edmonton, which is the city that I live in, was going to be the model for 15-minute cities in North America, which was a very, very poor choice, by the way, because a lot of people in Edmonton don't live in, just live here. They don't actually work here. And that's a rather critical aspect of this country. And it's like, how are they going to, they're going to run on electrical power. How are they going to run on electrical power when the people that work out of town work remotely in camps? Like, how are they going to generate the power to keep their trucks and their equipment going? Like, are they going to run like 400-mile long extension cords to do it? Because I don't think that's really going to work very well for them. Like, that's not going to work particularly well for them. So, I mean, it's like when Donald Trump is talking about this sort of stuff, it's like, yeah, it is a bit of a con job, and it's a moot issue. And I mean, you could send Greta Thunberg over here to like make all the speeches that you want. And it's like, I remember having this discussion when Greta Thunberg actually came to Edmonton. It's like, you doing anything about China? You doing anything about India? You doing anything about Saudi Arabia? No, of course not. Well, they're not important. Well, actually, yeah, they are kind of important. So what Donald Trump was saying there was, and I don't have to be a fanboy of Trump to not acknowledge the fact that he does happen to be right about this and about the carbon footprint about that part of the world. Right? Feel free to look that up yourself, by the way. Again, right? Don't have to be a fan of Trump to figure that out. Don't. Sorry, don't. The whole issue here is the fact that, what Trump was saying, and also use of settlers and immigrants. Ironically enough, I'm going to, again, because I don't have a dog in that fight, but I mean, I am aware, for instance, that the government of Israel was moving settlers into Gaza and into the West Bank and whatnot, and they were using that as an aggressive form of war. That is a form of war. The Israeli government has been using that. I mean, I have zero problem admitting that. I don't have a dog in that fight, but resettlement of refugees and that sort of thing is a form of warfare. And several centuries ago, Europeans fought really hard to prevent Europe from becoming Islamic, right? And they won, right? Only to have the leaders in Western Europe effectively did ban them and to invite them in such massively large numbers that even like larger European countries like Germany and France and Britain, like the largest religions in those countries in a few years might actually be Islam, right? And it's like, protection of your own borders and protection of your own culture is not a racist act. It's not Islamophobic. It's not Istophobic. It's not anything. It's like, you're not a nation if you cannot protect your own borders, and you're not a nation if you cannot protect your own citizens, right? Like there was a guy in Texas. In fact, we covered this. It was 2 or 3 weeks ago where there was a guy in Texas attempting to impose Sharia law on Islamic store operators and telling them that they had to go halal in the United States, which is illegal. There's a separation of church and state in the United States. So that's going to have to deal with. And last but not least, what are the approximate odds that both the escalator and the overhead monitor or the prompter would both go out during Trump's visit? That the escalator would go down while Trump was riding it? What are the approximate odds of that happening? Pretty goddamn small. In all honesty, it's very, very small that would happen just by accident. That was probably done intentionally. I suspect there's probably going to be a few people that are going to have to make that are probably at the UN that are going to have to do some explaining, because I don't know the approximate odds of both of those pieces of electronic equipment going down at the same time, right? Although I do have a bit of a security background, and, a well-placed individual in the maintenance department could have done that sort of thing, right? And the approximate odds of both of those things going wrong at the same time are slim to none. Yeah, they are. They're slim to none. And no shit, the State Department is going to be looking into that. In fact, if I was running the State Department, I would have people looking into that too. Because, there's a little bit too coincidental for it to be just basically brushed off as, oh, well, the things just happen. Because obviously things didn't just happen. And, that's just, again, oh, well, it just happened on purpose. No, it didn't just happen. It just didn't just happen by accident, right? Like the escalator going down. Yeah. Okay. I could kind of see that happening. But both the escalator and the prompter going down at the same time. And yeah, of course, you'll have people talking about how unhinged, but I mean, you ain't wrong. Like we covered the massive protest that was taking the anti-immigration protest that was happening in London. We covered that like 2 weeks ago, 2 episodes ago, right? Like this is a problem, and not just a problem in Great Britain, right? Like potential assassination of AfD party members in Germany, right? Attempting to throw Marine Le Pen in prison in France, right? At one point, the Italian government was leaning towards an anti-immigration policy, and that prime minister got booted out, and somebody else took over, and then Meloni ended up. But I mean, there have been attempts on the big four in one form or another to either. And of course, I'm not even going to get into what's happening in Britain right now, because that place is just, Great Britain has the ability to control its own destiny, and it's even worse off than the other countries in Western Europe, even though it's not part of the EU anymore, right? Like the idea of leaving the EU was that they would not get involved with or get sucked into. They wouldn't get sucked into globalism, but in fact, they ended up embracing globalism even worse than they did before. And that's kind of where I'm at with that. So without any further ado, let's move on to the next topic here. This is the Hollywood section. Now, because I have a film background, I usually generally have some rather strong opinions about some of the stuff that goes on in Hollywood. Now, I had to put Jimmy Kimmel on a separate topic because of specifically what happened with Jimmy Kimmel. But yeah, before we get into it though, I am going to hold on a second. I'm going to have to talk about a particular TV series known as the Savant. Now, we covered the Savant a couple of weeks ago. Again, right? Jessica Chastain, by the way, she's done a lot of PC stuff, and while she has been kind of quiet about her stuff, I mean, the Savant has potential failure written all over it, right? For various reasons. Interracial couple, a lot of girl power, all of the villains. And by the way, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to do badly, right? But it's like all of the villains somehow all just happen to miraculously be conservative white males, right? And again, I don't have a direct dog in that fight because I'm not white. It's like, let's not kid ourselves here, right? Looking at the premiere for this particular movie, for this particular TV series, it's got woke written all over it. I mean, the critical drinker talked about not being able to read the fucking room, right? And that's exactly what happened here. Well, apparently somebody at Apple TV did read the room. And after what happened with Charlie Kirk, did read the room, and somebody decided, yeah, you know what? Maybe it's not such a good idea to be releasing this particular TV series right now. Maybe we should delay. Jessica Chastain got a little bit annoyed about it, and the next video I'm going to show you is the again, Crowder wasn't hosting this particular show, but the guy who was there did comment on it, and I'm gonna play that response for you right now.
All right. In the last 5 years since we've been making the show, we've seen an unfortunate amount of violence in the United States. The kidnapping attempt on Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. You mean the FBI plot? The January 6th attack on the Capitol? You mean the peaceful protests for the most part? The assassination attempts on President Trump? Hey, at least you got one in there, but you seem to run over it really quickly. The political assassinations of Democratic representatives in Minnesota. What side of the aisle were they on? The attack on Speaker Pelosi's husband. Nobody knew that was real. We thought it was just two guys that were lovers that got into a fight.
Do we still know?
I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. And that's what was funny, not the fact that he got hit in the head with a hammer. It was the whole scenario that was there. The assassination of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk, the recent shooting at an ABC affiliate station in California, and over 300 school shootings across the country. I've never shied away from difficult subjects, and while I wish this show wasn't so relevant, unfortunately it is.
Oh, well, that's like, I wish I wasn't so pretty. I wish I wasn't so rich.
Well, is it relevant because you're saying that you have to stop white people? Is that the goal here? I don't know. But she does say that. But word is she did make quite the scene at Apple headquarters.
It's her against the world.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what she wrote, but it did not seem friendly.
She wrote it backwards.
It was angry writing.
They couldn't read it. No.
What did it say?
I don't know.
Nobody knows. Anyway.
Do you remember when Homeland came out and it was really good?
It was phenomenal.
And then they threw a fit because they said we were, vilifying Muslims as terrorists?
That were actually portraying them as what they were.
That's what was going on. We were in a war on terror against Muslims.
Who were, they were very bomby back then.
There used to be two, I don't know, for any of our new viewers, can I just, a history lesson. There used to be two very tall buildings in New York.
Yes.
You can see them in Home Alone. What? Now, they're not there because of white people.
But Tucker has a theory. New series out by him, I guess.
Yep. So, Jessica Chastain has played a lot. And there was one, I can't even remember what the name of it was now, but Jessica Chastain played has played a lot of woke, has had a lot of woke parts. Again, writes that response that Chastain made really demonstrates why the Hollywood community is so out of touch with what is going on. Somebody, when they made this series, if they were making the series for a couple of years, a couple of years ago, Biden was in power, right? So when they did this particular series, the Savant, Biden was still the president. They were potentially anticipating that maybe Kamala Harris was going to win the White House in 24, last year. So, maybe what went down that at that particular time fit a narrative that no longer works. The only problem is that, and again, I know enough about the film industry to understand that once a series is starting in production, calling everybody back to do reshoots is not as easy as you might think. You have to get the locations. You don't necessarily have to get the crew, but you do have to get but you do necessarily have to sometimes get the lead actor and the kid. Sometimes getting the lead actor is sometimes not particular, getting the actors back and doing reshoots can be a very complicated issue because you also have to get the location. You don't try to get the locations back as well. Sometimes that's not easy, especially if they have burned a location. Film companies will do that. They will burn locations and, they will make it impossible to return to those locations, not just for them, but for any other company that comes along in the future. So it's a lot of maybe what happened with the Savant is it's like, yeah, well, it's too late. We can't go back. We can't do reshoots. We can't do this. We can't do that. So we're just going to have to go ahead and go with what we've got. And, that's basically it. We're just going to have to go with what we've got. And when the critical drinker was talking about Apple's TV inability to read the room, that's probably what they were talking about, right? It's not that they were unable to read the room. They were possibly too far into production to just stop and roll back. The same sort of thing happened with the old Batgirl series. So, of course, keep in mind, there was a lot of other things wrong with Batgirl. And it's happened with a couple of other series too, where they've gone into it and then they've had to just stop because something happened or the culture changed or whatever. Somebody at Apple TV decided, oh, no, we're just going to keep going with this. And they were kind of like, they probably weren't expecting to what happened to happen. I mean, would the Savant have come out if Charlie Kirk had not been assassinated? Yeah, I think it probably would have. Somebody at Apple TV, the showrunner or whatever, one of the executives at Apple TV, when they looked at what was happening with Trump, it's like, okay, well, then we can just play this off as a bunch of leftist schlock, and maybe the writing and the acting and whatever can compensate for it, like it did, for instance, on Handmaid's Tale. By the way, one of the few actual woke successes that can. Now, it's possible that the Savant might be like that. I very much doubt it, but it's possible, right? But I mean, Charlie Kirk's assassination really changed the mood of society. It changed it in a really significant manner. And what I mean by changing it in a really significant manner, it's like, yeah, probably not such a good idea at this current time to be coming out with movies that portray white males as evil, bad people, or anybody who is a patriot as a bad, ugly, evil person. Because it's probably not going to go over very well post Charlie Kirk. Now, Jessica Chastain might have gotten a little bit upset about that, but you know what? Fuck her, right? Like, at this point, I have very limited sympathy for anything that comes out of Hollywood. And so, yeah, too bad, so sad for Emma, for Jessica Chastain and that particular series. Cry Me a River. The executive producer and the showrunner were possibly going to go with the anti-Trump shtick when they first started this. Unfortunately, that didn't work, right? They might have been able to go through with it had, perhaps they had tried to, see it through. But now with the Charlie Kirk situation, it's like, yeah, oops, you can't do that anymore, right? So it's like, yeah, you're gonna have to go back to the drawing board. Now the other issue, and this one just. Again, it turns out that when I looked into this wasn't going to be the case, but there were a few YouTube videos about it, so I had to throw it in there. They were going to try and gender swap Voldemort. No, I'm not kidding. Now, apparently, that is not going to be the case. But yeah, like somebody wanted to actually have Voldemort be a woman. Now, as we all know, gender and race, among the other things they've tried to do on this Harry Potter series, that they've also tried to race swap Snape as well. And both of these series, but this one in particular, the Harry Potter TV series, I don't like the direction it's going in. I mean, it has woke failure kind of written all over it at this point in time. It just does. And, you know, like the whole situation here is such that, I mean, it's, yeah, what are you going to do if things get really bad here, right? Because it's like, yeah, they're probably putting a lot of money into this television series, and they're taking a lot of chances and doing a lot of race swapping and gender swapping and doing the sorts of things that have killed a lot of television productions and a lot of TV series up till now. And again, much like with the Savant, I mean, whoever the executive producer and the showrunner are on Harry Potter, it is very, very obvious that they are not able to read the room, and they clearly do not respect the lore. And that is going to come back and haunt them at some point, right? Like, they just are not able to read the room. And if you're not really able to read the room, you know, you're going to, I mean, yeah, you might luck out. Age of the Dragon was able to push, but then again, Age of the Dragon didn't do the same things that they did on that other Lord of the Rings show, which didn't do so well, right? So, you know, again, right, we keep going over this, right? They gender swap, or they race swap, or they bring in some other woke bullshit, right? And then the pattern just goes in. People notice, people complain, and then, of course, they come out with this stuff and they cry istophobe or misogynist or racist or whatever, and the ball just gets rolling. And by the time the situation is done, you know, the show is DOA before they even get to the actual show itself, right? I think the show is the show is like not gonna work. It's not gonna pan out. It's not gonna do very well. And you know, that's really all there is to it. Like, the show is just not gonna work, right? Because it's like it's off on the wrong foot. The showrunners and the people who are controlling the publicity at the studio have decided that it's okay to go around and insult the fans of the show before the show is even released. That pisses people off. You know, people come back with reasonable arguments against it. And of course, you know, you've got the woke crowd, whom, by the way, don't actually support the show, start to chime in. Case in point, what's happening with the Warhammer series, right? Now, I will say one thing about the Warhammer series. Apparently, like, the two people that were the driving force behind a lot of the woke bullshit that was happening at Warhammer kind of exposed themselves over the Charlie Kirk situation. Now, maybe that indirectly might end up, that might have the Charlie Kirk effect, might actually shape Warhammer, but it's obviously not going to work with Harry Potter, right? And what can I say, man? You know, it's not looking particularly good for Harry Potter. Like, race swapping Snape was one thing. But then being so full of yourself and having your head shoved so far up your rear end that you go and you try to gender swap another character in that movie. And again, right, this isn't the first time, because at one point, Hermione Granger also got race swapped. And it's not, they keep doing this. And it's like, I guess if you're a black transgender midget, it's a good time to get into the film industry. But it's like, I just gotta say it, like the whole situation with that Harry Potter TV series, you have the woke mind virus clearly dominating like the upper management of that production. And woke series, despite claims to the obvious, do not, if they get woke, go broke, is actually a real thing. It is. And they're going to find out the hard way. And it's like, again, several $100 million going down the tubes because they were more concerned about the message and not about the actual show itself, right? And you're going to pay the price for that, right? The Savant, maybe it'll do well. Maybe Jessica Chastain, maybe the writing is good enough. I do not feel particularly hopeful. There's just a few too many woke elements, even in the trailers, for me to be particularly hopeful about the Savant. But again, right, A Handmaid's Tale worked. So it's possible, right? Statistically unlikely, but it is possible. And that's really about all I have. That's really about all more I have to add on that, because I'm doing the show by myself tonight. But this next one. This is, of all of the things that I have to do, this one is probably the most frightening and disturbing of the bunch here. And again, I have a video for this one. I do have a video for this one, and it's not like if you're a nationalist or you're anti-globalist, like this is not a particularly reassuring video. But unfortunately, this is the way they're going. Even in Canada, like I got to point out that Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister, was at this event. But I have two videos on it. One of them is, again, from Andrew Tate, but I will play the Keir Starmer digital ID one first.
And that is why today I am announcing this government will make a new free-of-charge digital ID mandatory for the right to work by the end of this Parliament. Let me spell that out. You will not be able to work in the United Kingdom if you do not have digital ID. It's as simple as that. Because decent, pragmatic, fair-minded people, they want us to tackle the issues that they see around them. And of course, the truth is, we won't solve our problems if we don't also take on the root causes, looking upstream to tackle poverty, conflict.
Yep. So, it's a, very disturbing. Carney was in the audience, but here I got to post up something by Andrew Tate, and Andrew Tate's been hitting the hammer nail right on the head lately about a few issues. But this one is definitely one of those situations because like what Keir Starmer was talking about here was and is a digital jail, right? But yeah, let's listen again, right? If you're one of those individuals that starts to fucking spur out because it's Andrew Tate, again, let me emphasize this. The problem is you and not Andrew Tate. Okay? That's all I'm going to say about it. But yeah, let's listen to Andrew Tate's video.
I'm in charge of England. I have a society, and I've made new rules for my society that nobody wants to play by. Nobody wants my new society I've made. Nobody likes the migrants. Nobody likes the government. Nobody likes the taxes. Nobody likes the ULEZ. Nobody wants their money sent to Ukraine. Nobody wants any of the things I'm doing. Nobody. So my answer to that is, well, whoever becomes a problem, we just put them in jail. But the arrow now is becoming overloaded because too many people don't like what I'm doing. And it's taking a whole bunch of time. The media are attacking me, and it's becoming too expensive to move people from this society I built they don't like to the new society. And in this new society, the only reason they behave is because we control where, when, how, and why. So what's the answer to this? The answer is we put everyone in jail. The answer is let's get rid of that arrow and let's just put everyone in a digital jail. Done. Now we ain't got to move people from society to jail. We don't need the arrow anymore. All this is saved. Everyone's in jail, so we can control the where, when, how, and why. The digital ID allows us to control where people go, when they can go there, how they get there, and why. So if they say things we don't like, we can stop them from using public transport. If they say things we don't like, we can stop them from flying. If they eat too much meat, which is bad for the environment, we can stop them from buying it. We can stop them from going to the doctors. I thought the NHS was free for everybody. Only if you have a digital ID. The NHS is free if you have a digital ID. You can't go hospital now. So they're going to put us all into one big jail, control everything, and say, look, we fixed crime. Well, that's because we're all in jail. That's because we've removed free will.
Again, right, you may not like Andrew Tate, but I mean, unless somebody has got a very convincing argument as to why you don't like how, and I mean, you're going to have to do a whole hell of a lot better than Andrew. You're going to do a whole hell of a lot better than Andrew Tate bad. Yeah, you are. That's your point, man. You're going to have to come up with something seriously powerful here to overpower the actual content of his argument. Because just going, well, Andrew Tate, blah, 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 it's like, that's a fucking genetic fallacy. You still got to prove what he's saying wrong. Right? Like, the fact that it's Andrew Tate saying it is a red herring. Just like at the start of the video when I played Nick Fuentes, whom, by the way, I'm not a particularly big fan of, right? But regardless of whether you like or dislike Nick Fuentes, I mean, like, yeah, it's like, don't really give a shit, right? You don't like what he said? Prove him fucking wrong. Go ahead. Fucking prove him wrong, right? Like, I've got somebody tonight on Twitch who decided to spurg out with me about Trump. And it's been proven conclusively, for instance, that Trump did not play a factor, and the FCC did not play a factor in what happened with Kimmel, right? They haven't produced any evidence. J.D. Vance has gone on the record as saying that there was not any attempt to get Kimmel shut down from the White House, right? Like, to what end would it deserve? Again, here, let me go back here. There's his ratings again, right? Like, those ratings speak for themselves. Yes, this is And again, this is a form of digital jail. Of all the Western countries, especially the Five Eyes, Great Britain is probably the furthest along in forming this techno-fascist state. Canada, Australia, and New Zealand are not far behind. Now, it's been my understanding that Carney was in the audience when this happened. By the way, Carney was running the Bank of England for a while, right? He lived in London, so he probably knew and associated with Keir Starmer, and probably attended a lot of the globalist events there. In fact, he was interviewed, or was at least somebody from Rebel did actually talk to Carney at Davos at least once. So, yeah. This is a techno-fascist state, and they definitely have figured out that that public opinion is turned against them, because they've had two particularly strong events. They've had that mass protest, but they also had that case of Maya Wolf up in Scotland, defending her sister from a group, at least one Islamic man and either his wife or his friend that were trying to fucking sexually assault a 12-year-old girl. And the press in Britain ran block for this guy. Let me emphasize this for you again. A lot of the mainstream press in Britain ran block for a guy, a Muslim immigrant, that was potentially trying to sexually assault a 12-year-old girl. Yeah, no wonder people in Britain are pissed off. Again, this whole concept of the digital ID and the Agenda 2030, this is nothing new, right? This is something that's been floating out there for a while. Don't know what's going to happen to Britain. Keir Starmer kind of got in because Boris Johnson kind of didn't. Hold on a second. He got Britain out of the EU, but he didn't have a plan on what to do moving forward. And that kind of ended him, but you can't dismiss the possibility here that, again, like in the United States, they would call them rhinos, but I mean, the globalist faction, and by the way, I got a lot of people keep forgetting this. Elizabeth May was a conservative, right? Like the globalist faction inside the Conservative Party potentially, because Boris Johnson had an overwhelming majority, right? They displaced him, and the guy they got in there was obviously not able to do anything with an overwhelming majority. And now Keir Starmer got elected because people got pissed off at the Conservatives. Keir Starmer got elected, and he's going even like. This is exactly what they were talking about. Keir Starmer is doing the very thing that people were afraid of was going to happen in Britain, has happened in Britain, right? And yeah, they have figured out, and this is not just happening in Britain, it's happening all over the world now. People are getting a little bit fed up and a little bit pissed off about how these governments have been conducting themselves. And, now, in particular in Britain, now they have gotten to, and this is Andrew Tate's point, is that they are gonna, and this, I mean, I'm an atheist, right? But the best metaphor that I can come up with this digital ID is the mark of the beast. Like that story out of Revelations, which, by the way, I have read, isn't too far off, right? The technology is there to make something like this happen, right? And this is kind of like my line in the sand. Carney the only reason Carney, for instance, has not tried doing this in Canada yet is because if he did, Alberta absolutely would separate. You know, I'm going to go out even further here. You know, while you'd like to think that the Canadian government or a faction of the Canadian government wouldn't resort to assassination, I mean, there's not a whole lot they can do about it. I mean, Canada is holding on by a thread. I mean, if they tried doing this in the country that I live in, like, first of all, like Danielle Smith, especially after she apologized to with everything that happened around COVID, in particular with that very clear, insane health official that was running the COVID program in Alberta at the time, right? And she had to apologize for her behavior. Like, she will probably have no other choice but to declare notwithstanding. You know, when I got involved in this, and I'm not going to lie, right? It's happened every single time. Every single time that I have tried to get on a plane, and there hasn't been very many of them in the past 2 years. Every time I have gotten on the plane, somehow I always find myself being randomly selected to be scanned, right? So I'm on a list somewhere. Yeah, you know, I'm just going to say this in particular from, I mean, a lot of people, and like, I mean, like, this is, I think Keir Starmer opened up a can of worms here that I don't think he was expecting was going to turn, that people were going to turn on him the way they have, right? Because the media, and again, you saw this with the Trump speech, and you saw this with a couple of the other stories that took place this over the past few weeks. The media keeps dropping the ball. Like, the media in the West, for the most part, just seems to be unable or unwilling to read the room, right? And they have gone full-blown propaganda. They're now full-blown propagandists, like they probably were already, but now they definitely are. And it's not going to go particularly well for them, right? And, you know, yeah, for me personally, the digital ID thing is my line in the sand. If, like, I mean, for instance, if I was in Britain right now, I would be making plans to leave Britain. If Mark Carney does this here in Canada, I am going to start either Danielle Smith declares notwithstanding to have Alberta not be part of this, or I'm going to have to go off grid, or I'm going to have to go to another country, because I am not going to submit to a digital ID and prevent myself from even working and making a living. Like, that's not happening. Like, I'm not doing that, right? Like, Mark Carney already has brought in the same type of granted, it's a little bit watered down, but he's brought in the same kind of, he's basically picking right up where Justin Trudeau left off. And, you know, yeah, that's my line in the sand. It's really frightening, because, like, yeah, what's happening in Britain is going to go to other places, especially if you're one of the Five Eyes, which is Canada, Britain, United States, New Zealand, and Australia, right? Like, those are the Five Eyes, right? If it goes into if it breaches into the Five Eyes, I mean, yeah, the United States might be the last to follow. And yeah, there have been attempts at doing this type of legislation in the United States. It hasn't been as effective as it would have been, say, in Canada or New Zealand or Australia. But I mean, it's still there. Of all the things that have come up, though, that one probably even more so than the COVID passports which, by the way, I also didn't submit myself to. You know, those things have probably been the most frightening aspects of what's happened over the past few years. That the internet has been, and you know, I gotta admit, it's, yeah, for me personally, this is my line in the sand. Like, if this digital ID thing does not concern you, then what will? Right? Like, do you want to live in that type of a techno-fascist state? Because that's exactly what you're going to be dealing with if this digital ID comes in, right? And yes, people are rightfully fighting back and opposing this for damn good reason. And it's not just biblical issues. You don't have to be a Bible thumper to see the potential abuse of here, right? One, you become the product. Two, it's far too easy to monitor you, cut you off from your funds, cut you off from work, cut you off from taking public transport, cut you off from travel. Now you combine that with this green agenda and the 15-minute cities, and it's like, yeah, you as a human being are going to be reduced down to a drone or a worker bee. Is that what you want in your life? Is that something that, you know, that an idiot like, say, Emma Plath over on Twitch, is that what you want, Emma? Is that what you want in your life? Do you want to be the worker drone? Do you want to be the worker bee? Is that what you want? Put your hand up if you want to say you want an absolutely controlled existence with no expression, no freedom of movement, no ability to go anywhere. Like, you basically exist for the state, which, by the way, you know, is going to be some type of a corporate techno-fascist dystopia. Rather ironic, because we're going to be talking about Antifa on the next topic here. But I mean, yeah, that's what you're looking at. That is seriously what you're looking at. And, you know, that's what you want. If you think I'm being tinfoil hatty here, by all means, man, come at me, right? But it's like, yeah, like digital ID is, for all intents and purposes, my line in the sand. And with that, I'm gonna go on to the last topic of the night, which is, of course, and I mean, I have to agree here, Donald Trump has finally decided that it was, last week he openly decided that it was like, yeah, I'm going to declare Antifa as a terrorist organization. And it's like, yeah, like, it's not a coincidence that the first place he targeted was Portland, Oregon. Rose City Antifa. I mean, Antifa has done particularly well in states, in cities where there are blue cities and blue states, whereas AKA, right, both the municipal law enforcement and state law enforcement, like the governor and the mayor, happily and gleefully look the other way around. Well, guess what? And I mean, they even had it on the national level, because the Biden administration was also looking the other way around, looking the other way. Well, guess what, Antifa? Party's fucking over. And I got a series of about 3 videos here. They're going to last about 5 or 6 minutes that I think demonstrates it all for you. So here we go. First is one from Fox News.
To protect war-ravaged Portland. Now, I remember this well. I remember 2020. There's a lot of violence in Portland. There was a courthouse that folks tried to set on fire, and President Trump deployed federal law enforcement there. I was his press secretary at the time. Here's what I said. By any objective standard, the violence, chaos, and anarchy in Portland is unacceptable. Yet Democrats continue to put politics above peace while this president seeks to restore law and order. Now, someone who was there with me in the White House at that time was Katie Miller. She's the host of the Katie Miller podcast. She has a long track record in the Trump administration. Katie, you and I were there in the summer of 2020. We remember how dangerous Portland got, and they still have crime problems today. What do you make of the president's action?
You know, the greatest difference between President Trump's first term and a second term is that we're not waiting for there to be set fires in Portland. As President Trump said in 2020, it's an anarchist jurisdiction. So what do you do with an anarchist jurisdiction? You deploy as many troops as possible. You gain control quickly, and you say, we are coming for you, and we will not allow the riots in the street like we did in the summer of 2020. This is President Trump's country, and he has promised to make sure that every American feels safe, and that includes our brave law enforcement, who's been the subject to too many violent attacks, whether that be what happened this week or weeks before that. It is not acceptable to attack law enforcement who are just carrying out the duty that Congress has charged them with. And President Trump has said no more. And by doing this action today, he's not waiting for it to get worse. He is going to protect our brave men and women who serve our country.
Katie, I'm really glad that you made that the focus, the brave men and women, because at that time in Portland back in 2020, I remember vividly when protesters tried to light a courthouse on fire, and there was federal law enforcement in and around this. And President Trump does have the authority to deploy National Guard to federal property to protect federal assets. And Katie, I just saw yesterday ICE agents who were followed, people giving out their address, the attacks on ICE facilities. You worked at DHS. Tell us what you know about ICE agents, DHS officials, these folks who put it all on the line and incur what you're looking at, this kind of violence.
Gavin Newsom is the first one who's demonized our great ICE law enforcement officers who put their lives on the line every single day to do the job that, again, Congress has charged them to do. And by President Trump taking this action today and saying we are not going to wait for it to be worse. And what happened in 2020 is, right, law enforcement served as crowd control measures. Yes, they made over 1,000 arrests back in 2020. But by doing this action today, he's saying that we're not going to wait. We're going to come quickly and come hard. And by doing that, you're protecting the ICE law enforcement in the field, because if you are greenlighting even a little bit of an ounce of attack against them, you don't know what's going to happen next. I mean, maybe we do, and we saw that what happened with our friend Charlie Kirk. But when you take quick and swift action, you are going to stand up for all men and women who today are on the streets arresting illegal aliens and ensuring their deportation, which is exactly what President Trump said he was going to do, is remove every illegal alien present in this country. And who's doing that? That is ICE. And we must all stand together with the people who are serving our great country.
Katie, I only have a few moments here, but I love listening to the Katie Miller podcast because I know you as a friend, and it's really cool because I feel like I'm getting to know the new Trump administration as a friend. I saw your conversation with J.D. Vance. You asked some really fun questions. What is the most exciting thing you've learned about a Trump administration official?
The greatest thing I really learned is how friendly they are with one another, which is such a change from the first administration, is that this time President Trump has truly picked a cabinet who enjoys hanging out with each other, whether that be on Air Force One or at dinners or on girls' nights together, because President Trump has selected such a diverse cabinet that includes more women than ever before.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch. Like my friend Caroline Levitt and Margot, they're all great friends, truly, really, and they're doing.
Okay, yeah, a little bit propagandistic. And yeah, there was a little bit of a feminist thing at the end. Again, it's Fox News. You know, of the major cable news networks, it's rather ironic because I remember watching Outfoxed years ago. And the, in particular, Bill, I can't even remember his name. God damn it. I wish I could remember his name. I can remember him when he was doing another show, Do It Live. But I mean, he wrote a ton of books. And I wish I could remember his goddamn name. It'll probably come to me. But it's like, yeah, he got charged with, he got booted out because of sexual impropriety and whatever. But I mean, yeah, it was a little bit propagandistic. And again, I remember him specifically being mentioned around that. But again, right, Fox News aside, compared to some of the other shows that are out there, yeah. It's kind of like pick your poison. But anyway, yeah, the next two videos, which are probably run a combined, probably just under 2 minutes, I'm going to show them back to back here. Both of them involve Portland, and again, about Rose City Antifa, and I will get into Rose City Antifa here after the fact. But anyway, yeah, there's two videos here. Both of them revolve around Antifa in Portland. So yeah, let's play them. And then we'll do the other one here.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. Officers come right out. Here we go. Here we go, bless. Clear the area. Whoa. Federal officers they trying to get this vehicle out. And the vehicles are now leaving safely.
Yeah, what can I say, man? Fuck around, find out. Fafo. That's really all I got to say about this. It's, in particular in both Chicago and Portland. By the way, Trump did toy with the idea of sending the National Guard into Portland. Now, the cities that he picked, Baltimore, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and like Portland was fourth on that list. All three of those cities have a combination of factors. One, at least in the case of when he started out with Washington, D.C., you had a governor that wasn't doing his job, and you also had a mayor in D.C. that was also not doing and hadn't been doing the job around law enforcement in D.C. That had gone on, actually, that had dragged on even since before Marion Barry was the mayor. That was a long time ago, by the way. That is the capital of the country. Trump is perfectly within his rights to order the National Guard in there to deal with law enforcement if the Washington, D.C., the city of Washington were not willing to do it themselves, and they haven't. And again, I've heard story after story after story about how Washington, D.C. was basically a crime-ridden hellhole, right? Like even, I mean, yeah, like the areas immediately around the Capitol were clean, but basically go like half a kilometer, half a mile outside of those areas, and the city got really bad really fast. And even in the Capital District, there was still a lot of crime going on. So yeah, this is not something that just kind of happened out of the blue. Chicago is got a long history. Both Chicago and Baltimore also have long histories of corruption. Again, failures at both the municipal and state level, in particular with Chicago with the Pritzkers. And I mean, I found out some stuff about the Pritzkers. Yeah, like the patriarch for the Pritzker family was actually a lawyer who worked with, potentially even with Al Capone, right? So, I mean, yeah, it's like you have a failure. Brenda Johnson is even worse than Lori Lightfoot. And you have multiple failures in both Baltimore and Chicago, where the mayors and the state were not doing the job they were supposed to be doing, which is protecting their cities from criminals. And of course, Trump had also gone on the record as to saying that he was going to be looking at George Soros, which is again with something that's, and I will get into this a little bit better, specifically why they're targeting Rose City Antifa, because they are so well organized and so well funded that they can probably get a financial trace, because again, right, RICO changes the situation there, right? They have the ability to seize the funds and prevent, unless they go through GoFundMe or whatever, they prevent the ability of, say, an individual like the Ford Foundation or the New Society or any George Soros-funded NGO from stepping in Portland and funding the defense of Antifa there. And that was basically what was going on. Antifa in, I think it was Salem, they were harassing the ICE facility there 24/7, slashing tires, attempting to. By the way, also you had the situation in Dallas where you had an individual, and again, the media lied about this guy and said he was a right winger, but like his mother, for instance, apparently had full blown Trump derangement syndrome, right? They tried to lie and say that he was a right winger. And again, the media just keeps dropping the ball on this. And let's just go back through some of the stuff that the media has done. They have supported, just in the last few months, they have supported people targeting law enforcement. And again, right, say what you want to about about that Fox News story. I mean, like, yeah, they were doing that. They're not the Gestapo, right? But, they are the legal, they are the law, they are law enforcement. They are. They have come out in favor of illegal immigrants, including illegal immigrants that have committed some fairly atrocious crimes. That thing about the Maryland man, I mean, God damn it, man. Like, why did they even try helping that dude out? They have come out in favor of pedophiles. They have come out it's like the immigration issue. I mean, that plant in Georgia where they were where they had all those illegals working there. I mean, like, you're talking, when you have something like the Hyundai plant with all those Koreans working there illegally, like, you're not, and by the way, there was also that situation a few years ago. We covered this at the time, where these two guys were taking a red eye from, I think it was Mexico, back into the U.S., and they were getting on they believe it was a United Airlines plane with a bunch of illegal aliens. So this is not this is organized on an international level, which strongly suggests that Soros, or at least there is a series of organizations inside the United States, and it is a combination of, and by the way, this also applies to Canada, a process of destabilization, of propping up the population, because a lot of the population, at least a lot of the native population, are refusing to have kids, and there's multiple reasons why that's happening. It's an attempt to prop up the population, and none of it is really working. And very, very clear that this is organized on an international scale and involves corporations, right? And it's not just happening in the US, it's also happening in Canada, it's happening in Britain, it's happening in Australia, it's happening. In fact, not only is it happening in the West, but it's actually happening on a smaller scale in other countries as well, right? Like systematic use of refugees and economic migrants to destabilize countries, unless they do something like, say, what China did or what Japan did and what a few other countries are doing, or a lot of countries in Eastern Europe where they're shutting their borders. Like a lot of these countries, this is not just something confined to Western Europe, although it's like the West, which is where I live, right? This is not just something that is uniquely happening to the United States, right? Like very clear, organized effort to try and do something about this. And again, right, it's, for Rose City Antifa, you know what? And I saw this on social media, particularly. I mean, again, I don't have Blue Sky. I'm never going to have Blue Sky. But on Threads, there were a lot of people who were Antifa that were grandstanding and talking a big game. Well, you just saw the video, right? The big game was just talk, and that was it, right? Like, it was like they should have done something about Antifa back in 2020. Trump didn't have people, and this is something that was mentioned in the Fox video. Trump now has a cabinet that is much more supportive of what he's trying to do. They're not trying to undermine him when his back is turned, right? Which makes it a lot easier for him to go and get something done. Also, you know what? And this might actually have ended up being a blessing in disguise, right? He had 4 years to not be president. And while he was also facing off that lawfare, he also had the time to develop a plan and a strategy to do some of the things that he was going to do if he was elected president again, and he got elected as president again. So, he's more organized, he's more focused on what he needs to be doing this time around as opposed to last time, because he got to be president, he got to see what would happen when he picked the wrong people. He had the time, 4 years as a matter of fact, to rethink his strategy, come back in with a much more cohesive, organized plan. And, it's like he's gone after the educational institutions. He definitely knew he had to do something about USAID. He shut down USAID, right? Like he's specifically targeting wokeness, right? Like people on the left were busy celebrating all of this, but again, right? Antifa was like that plum fruit a piece of low-hanging fruit on the tree that Trump at some point was just basically going to walk over and grab it and basically crush it in his hand. Like Antifa was dangling out there. So these people with Antifa have had it very good for a very long time. And yeah, the party's over. Antifa, fuck around, find out. Oops. Yep, that's totally on you. And zero fucks given. Again, right? These people can make all of the gestures that they want to online. Soros capitulated almost immediately when you hit the fuck around, find out point. And he caved in almost immediately. So yeah, Antifa is in trouble. Congress isn't going to help them. The media isn't going to help them. Soros is not going to help them. They are basically, screwed, right? And because Trump is using RICO statutes to go after Antifa. Yeah, the party's probably over for them, right? Good on them, right? Like at the same time, I might want to suggest, like for instance, right, taking some of the legal pressures off the Proud Boys might also potentially be able to do some stuff to make things less comfortable for Antifa. BLM is probably also on that list. Again, right? If I'm right about what I think Trump is going to do around BLM, he is basically going to wait for BLM to make a mistake. And when BLM makes that mistake, Trump is going to swoop in with the full authority and forces of the office that he is deemed appropriate and is going to go down. And the media and the folks on the leftists can scream all they want to about a fascist state. But I mean, that's where they were trying to take us. Now, again, right? We're less than a year into Trump's administration. Now, I have to consider, and I realize this might anger a few people, but you have to consider the very real possibility here that Trump might just simply be. And I haven't seen anything that suggests that this is not the case, that Trump might just be a different wing of the same bird. And again, to quote Sam Tripoli, the ceremony might just be a ceremonial changing of crime families, right? And this particular crime family is known as the Pax Americana crime family. And they, while they're not as uber controlling and they're not as potentially aggressive nationally, they will generally leave you alone as long as you're not interfering with their interests. But right, they will be just as harsh internationally as the globe. But at least with them, it's like you don't have 15-minute cities, and you don't have at least not to the same degree. You don't have digital IDs and stuff like that. At least not right away. They might sneak it in. They probably will try to sneak it in at some point. One of the things that's probably going to have to be done here is you're going to have to start becoming a little bit more organized in regards to getting more politically aware and becoming more politically organized. Because, I'm just not convinced that Trump, I'm not Team Trump, right? I get accused of being MAGA a lot because in general, he has done at least a lot in his first year. So he's done a lot of the things that needed to be done, right? Shut down USAID, going after Soros, right? Making sure Antifa is done, like doing something about the doing something about the like massive illegal immigration problem that's happening here, right? Changing the economic structure of the United States to move away from the fiat monetary based system into something that is less dependent on inflation and the dollar, things like that, like things that absolutely needed to be done, which is why he's going back to the old system of generating revenue for the government via tariffs and moving away from income tax and that fractional based reserve monetary system that again, this is not something that's generally so well known, but that particular system was on the verge of collapsing. And that is probably pretty much it for tonight, folks. I'm going to have to re-edit this because there was obviously a fraction of time here where I forgot to unmute my microphone. I noticed it before it got too bad, and I didn't have anything more than 4 listeners at any point tonight. That's also on me. But yeah, it's good to do a solo episode every once in a while. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't get to do solo episodes very often, but this is one of them. If you stuck out to the end, thank you very much. Don't just remember, I am let me just put that banner down there because, of course, I totally forgot to talk about this at the start of the show. Patreon, Red Pill Nation. I do have a subscribe star. I don't know why it hasn't been initiated yet, but it hasn't. Like, subscribe, join. I will see you on the next one. Thank you very much for listening through for tonight. And definitely had to issue a rather strong response to an individual. And this is going to probably happen more frequently. I had to deal with somebody tonight who wanted to be ignorant. Anyway, that is it for tonight. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you on the next one.